Hello from Mobile World Congress 2023. I'm here together with Max Cuvellier, Head of Mobile Development, GSMA. Hello, Max. Nice to meet you again.
Yeah, likewise.
This morning, I joined a session about breaking the gaps, so breaking the barriers, actually.
Yep.
So you had a nice infographic where you explained, look, on one side, we had a positive effect on connecting people, a slow positive, we still need to unlock. But on the other side, we also have the usage gap and the coverage gap.
Yep.
Would you mind to explain a bit how you see it based on your research and your work?
Yeah, absolutely. So they're very important concepts to understand because a lot of people think that when we say only 25% of Africans use mobile internet, they think it's because they're not covered. And it's actually not true. Today, 85% of Africans have been covered by mobile internet. So the mobile operators have made the investment. And so there are still 200 million Africans who are not covered, but the majority, 85%, are covered today. And the mobile operators will continue to invest. Between now and 2030, they'll invest $75 billion into connectivity. So obviously this 15% is important, but what's even more important is the people who are covered and not using. So if you do the math, 100% minus the 25 who are using, the 15 who are not covered, it's nearly 60% of the population where the investment has been made. They have access to mobile internet, but they're just not using it. And that's really important to tackle because the investment is there, but the usage is not. And that's what we call the usage gap.
All right, thank you. You talked earlier also about how committed the industry is to bridge this gap, the usage gap, coverage gap.
Yep.
So how they're actually taking actions? Do you see a big improvement over the years?
Yep.
And what do you think is the way to go ahead?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we've seen great involvement from the industry and great commitment in the past few years. And I think, they're also working on the coverage gap, of course, but what's very important with the usage gap is that A, it's about realizing the socioeconomic potential of being connected, but B, it's also, until we have enough people using the existing networks, we won't be able to make the investments to build networks for the people who are not connected today. So the usage gap and the coverage gap are completely linked and interconnected. In terms of what mobile operators are doing, they're addressing the different barriers in different ways. So some of them are doing a lot in terms of handset affordability and financing of handsets. Others are working on digital skills, for instance, but everybody's really committed today.
All right, so let's dig deeper into the key barriers. So you listed a few of them this morning. So what would you say is the most crucial one, which we need to fix the quickest? I know that's a tricky question, it's a chicken egg story. So, but from your feeling, would you say it depends on the country, on the regulations? Does it depend on the infrastructure?
I think it's pretty much the same everywhere. So there are 5 barriers. One is affordability of services, of data, but mostly affordability of handsets. The second one is on knowledge and skills. Like people just don't understand how to use the internet. Sometimes they might not have the literacy to do it, but it's also about digital literacy. Even if you know how to read, you might not know how to go online. The third one is about relevance. Why would I go online if I don't have access to the information or the services that I need? The fourth one is safety and security, which tends to affect women more than men. There's also a perception issue there. And the fifth one is more of an infrastructure access issue. So things related to mobile, but not directly influenced by mobile operators. For instance, access to energy. If I don't have access to energy, how do I charge my phone? Access to ID. If I don't have a formal proof of ID, you can't get a SIM card, you can't be online. So which ones are the most important? They're all important, but for me, it's addressing handset affordability and digital skills that really has the most potential like tomorrow or next year. Because if you can put the right handsets in people's hands and tell them how to use it, there are already relevant services out there and more services will come, if you like. So this is where we're seeing also like both on the private sector side, but also the public sector side, there have been a lot of initiatives in Rwanda here, for instance, like with local community ambassadors that kind of train people on what is the internet, even before they might get access to the internet, like laying the foundation with then the private sector coming in with like private financing, for instance, where again, the government can support by taking first loss or guarantees with a bank to allow those financing mechanisms on handsets.
All right, thank you. So when we see Africa as a continent itself and the population, majority of the population is below 30. So we're a very young continent, which actually brings a lot of opportunity and probably even energy to it, to let's say, speeden up the growth of everything. So when we look at that, shouldn't be the public sector especially very interested to skill them, to give them the right tools, to make connectivity affordable, because that is actually the foundation of a strong economy.
Yes, absolutely. And we're seeing that in a lot of markets. It's about basic digital skills for the overall population, but it's also about upskilling for jobs, which is extremely important. I mean, the need to create jobs from the digital economy and the economy more broadly is extremely important across most countries in Africa. The incentives that they can bring on is basically, as I said, like it's awareness campaigns and it's working with the private sector. It's actually, we've seen in some cases, for instance, like the cost of handsets going down, like the handset itself, and like initiatives to basically do financing around handsets. But if the taxes, the import duties, for instance, remain very high, then people just like, you lose the benefits from all the other initiatives. You could think also about manufacturing in Africa. This is something around like the trade union treaty and so on. If more phones are manufactured closer to users, then the price is going to go down. Like there will be less cost on transportation. There will be less fees on moving those phones across the continent. And that can also, it's also something the government can do to bring the cost down.
All right, thank you. So from a mobile development perspective, how do you see healthcare and financial inclusion as a crucial part for further developments in the African countries?
Yeah, for us, like healthcare, education, financial inclusion, but actually doesn't stop there. Like we do a lot of work on agri-tech, for instance, because smallholder farmers produce 70% of the food in Africa, and today they don't have the right tools to manage their finances, to access to insurance and so on. So it's a blend of, I was talking about relevance earlier, it's a blend of services that Africans should be able to expect in terms of managing their health better, managing the education of their children better, managing their farms better, and so on. And this is really what we've been working on, focusing also on specific population, like women, for instance, or people living in rural areas, persons with disabilities, refugees, and internally displaced populations. So it's really about addressing the needs of users based on who they are and what they do.
All right, thank you. So all in all, you would say you're optimistic about the years to come?
Yes. Yes, I mean, in Africa, you have to be optimistic. And it's like, even when you're not, you're just hit by a wave of optimism. There is so much being done by the private sector, large and small. The mobile operators are committing more and more. We've got you look at a lot of startups developing those new use cases, solutions, and so on. And we're seeing like a new wave of public sector engagement and so on, with some ministers like really understanding what is at stake and putting their energy not only in their country, but also at an African and at a global level behind it. And Minister Paula Ingabire is a great example.
All right. So what is your vision for Africa's digital landscape in terms of connectivity, innovation, inclusivity, and how do you see the concept of what we like to say togetherness driving this vision? Yeah. Togetherness, we mean actually everyone has to come together from private, public sector to tackle this.
So on togetherness, absolutely. There is no way, not one player can solve this issue. It needs to be the private sector, the public sector working together. Usually we also forget about civil society because it's about hearing what the communities need and involving the communities in developing new services and new approaches. Like you cannot, if it's felt like it's forced on people, it will not reach the potential that it can. What I see happening in the future is, until now, in a lot of cases, we've tested different ways of addressing the barriers from one angle or the other. What we're seeing, and for instance, we talked about this with MTN Rwanda this morning, is bringing together public-private sector, attacking the problem from many angles at once and building a full approach to the problem as opposed to kind of piecemeal little solutions here that we had to try in the past few years, but now we're at a stage where we have the tools and we have the learnings to really address it at scale.
All right, thank you. Last but not least, in one sentence, what does togetherness mean to you in the context of telco and technology in Africa?
I think togetherness for me is about aligning actions with a common goal, which is basically to bring everybody online and realize the full potential of digital, social, economic, at an individual level and at a country level.
Well, thank you very much. It was very insightful. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.
That was TechAfrica News from Mobile World Congress in Kigali. You can find more on www.techafricanews.com. See you there.